we shall approve you. That's it.
Honorable members, Mr. Speaker.
Prayers. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of humanity, we beseech you to look upon with your abundant favor these your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important trust in this land. Let your blessing descend upon them here assembled, and grant that they may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under their deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed to their charge. Amen.
Item number 2, communication from the chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, I want to welcome you to this special sitting where we are paying tribute to a gentleman who served his country diligently as a permanent secretary, office of the Prime Minister, and then the permanent secretary and secretary to the Treasury, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Before I go any further, Craft, I want you to get, maybe someone can volunteer for me a paper, because the MPs who are here are the ones that will give first priority. You know, others will come and they want to be given first priority. So Honorable Kari, you can, Honorable Oseku, you can run around the paper, I get your names so that I have them here. You can use my book. You can use my book. This one is, I know, okay? Yeah. Thank you, because I was waiting to see how many are in so that we start. I know the family is already here. They were meeting with the speaker. Shortly they are coming in, and the protocol, please do the needful so that we can start. I personally knew Case, and he was a personal friend. He was someone who was open-minded, focused, direct, decisive, and never feared to speak his mind on matters he regarded as important for our national development, including challenging us as Parliament, especially on issues of budget allocations, more so when we wanted more funds to be appropriated. His contributions towards strong macroeconomic policies will never be forgotten, how they have made an indelible mark on the economic development of our country. Case I went, I saw him in hospital. This is one person, and it was a very unfortunate incident. His professor, Professor Mete, at Chukrova State University Hospital, when we went there, told us that if there is any one fighter he has ever seen, it's Keith. I think Keith managed it, even fight cancer for this long because of his spirit. The spirit he used to have here, fighting for his country, pushing through a lot, is the same spirit he showed when he was fighting cancer. And we discussed a lot on especially supporting the Cancer Institute. I can tell you, he equally played a very, very critical role in ensuring that the Cancer Institute gets funds, number one, for the equipment that we do have. If you go there, we have very, very, maybe people need to first go and visit the kind of equipment. We have some of the equipment that we are only in 2 countries in Africa. They are here at the Uganda Cancer Institute. And the only thing we need to do is to provide more so that the issue of their home is fully sorted, that more and more Ugandans are supported. When you go there and you interact with the patients, because personally I went there, and you interact with the patients, you find that indeed the patients are saying they give us very, very good service. And this was due to the special attention the government gave this. And I'm sure case as a PSST and PS Finance played a very, very critical role, as well as you, honorable colleagues, the role you played in ensuring that you appropriate funds. But we need to do more in this sector. Colleagues, after this special session, we shall have the normal session at 2 p.m. because we have a lot of business we must sort out before we go for tax bills starting next week. May Casey's soul continue resting in eternal peace. Our condolences to the family, to the friends, to the government and the President of the Republic of Uganda, whom at Kororo, at the official burial, used words that I've not heard him on very many occasions use to describe people. He said, Keith was not a worker, he was a partner in the development of the country. He was a confidant in the development of the country. I want to welcome our VIPs. I'll be getting the list and the family, and we shall be reading it out. But in a special way, allow me to welcome the Ambassador of Italy to Uganda, our good friend, Ambassador Masi, who helped also when Keith was being taken to Italy. But unfortunately, that same day when Keith passed on, and I received a call from Professor Baze, and we wanted him to help. It was unfortunate his dad was also passing away. He sent me a message, my dad is dying. And indeed, by morning, the dad was dead. So the next day, he had it fly out. So Ambassador, we condole with you as Parliament, and one thank you for the role played in ensuring that our brother is given a befitting burial. I see the PSST and Secretary to the Treasury, Mr. Ramadan Gobi, who has taken on the mantle. We wish you all the best, and we promise you our support. I see family members. I see the brother who has come in, Julius, and the rest. We shall be reading the names because I see our very good friend, Council Rukutana, very good friend at case. I see a former Attorney General of Yarhanga, who is also a very good friend case. I see Mr. Bob Cabonero, one of the prominent business people we have in the country, also already here. So I'll be reading the names after we've gotten the full list of the people who have already come. But I had requested that the family. Okay. I can see we can create more space on this side, and please you allow the brothers to come because I can see one of the brothers, Julius. No, I know them very well. Julius is up there. They are my friends. So yeah, so I would request the brothers and sisters be given space down here, they come this side. So next item. Please, on paying tribute, we don't do procedure. There's no order, there's no procedure when we have special sessions of paying tribute.
Item number 3, motion for resolution of Parliament to pay tribute to the late Mr. Keith Muhakanizi, former Permanent Secretary, Office of the Prime Minister, and former Permanent Secretary, Secretary to the Treasury.
Right, Honorable Prime Minister.
Right, Honorable Speaker and colleagues, I move under Rule 56 of our Rules of Procedure to move a motion for a resolution of Parliament to pay tribute to the late Keith Muhakanizi for his dedicated service to the Republic of Uganda. Right, Honorable Speaker and colleagues, whereas the Parliament of Uganda received with deep sorrow the sad news of the demise of Mr. Keith Muhakanizi, which occurred in Milan, Italy, on Thursday, 13th April 2023, aware that Mr. Keith Muhakanizi has had an illustrious and distinguished career spanning more than 38 years, serving in various capacities in the public service of Uganda, where he played a crucial and immense role in the social and economic transformation of Uganda, noting that Keith Muhakanizi has held several key positions of responsibility, which include the following. That is July 2021 to April 2023, Permanent Secretary, Office of the Prime Minister. May 2013 to July 2021, Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. December 2005 to May 2013, Deputy Secretary, Treasury, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Board Member, Bank of Uganda. Chairperson, Housing Finance Bank Limited, Uganda. Chairperson, National Housing and Construction Company. Director, Budget, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. He also served as Director, Economic Affairs, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. He was an economist, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Recognizing that Keith Muhakanizi was a diligent leader who immeasurably served Uganda with dedication and patriotism, and participated in shaping the destiny of Uganda through initiating and implementing economic and fiscal reform programs that restored Uganda's economy and transformed the macroeconomic policy, planning, budgeting, financial accountability, fiscal, and private sector growth in the country. Appreciating that Keith Muhakanizi was a distinctively dedicated, poised, and iconic leader who played a vital role in mobilizing revenue and resources for the country and executed the economic reformative programs which restored donor and investor confidence in the economy of Uganda. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Parliament as follows. 1, that Parliament collectively conveys its deep condolences to the bereaved family, relatives, friends, and the people of Uganda for the loss of a distinguished and gallant citizen of this country. 2, that Parliament takes cognizance of the immense contribution that Mr. Case Muhakanizi has rendered to the people of Uganda. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you, Right Honorable Prime Minister. Is the motion seconded? Seconded by Honorable Cooper, by Leader of Opposition, by Opposition Chief Whip, by Honorable Jim Wezi, Honorable Nifa Kaoya, Honorable Remuricha, Honorable Enos Asimwe, Honorable Kemirembe Pauline Chaka, Honorable Kasaija, unanimously seconded by the whole House. Honorable Ameru. Right Honorable Prime Minister, do you love to speak to the motion?
Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, my justification. On Thursday, 13th April 2023, the country was shocked with the sad news of the passing on of Mr. Case Muhakanizi, the Permanent Secretary, Office of the Prime Minister. Mr. Muhakanizi succumbed to multiple organ failure at Milan Hospital in Italy, where he had gone for treatment following 5 years on treatment for cancer. Mr. Case Muhakanizi served as a Permanent Secretary of my office from July 2021 until the time of his demise. He had previously served as Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury in the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development from May 2013 to July 2021. That Honorable Speaker, Mr. Case Muhakanizi was born on 12th December 1961 to late Reverend Kosia and Zelda Kajwenge in Rukunjiri district in a family of 7 children, 4 boys and 3 girls. The Honorable Speaker, he was married to Janet Kamukama Muhakanizi and were blessed with children. From 1967 to 1972, he attended Nyabitete Primary School and then joined Intare School for his O and A level education from 1973 to 1978. He then proceeded to Makerere University for a bachelor's degree in economics and graduated in 1981. Mr. Muhakanizi undertook a master's degree in economic policy and planning from the University of London. Honorable Speaker and colleagues, Mr. Muhakanizi joined the Uganda Public Service in June 1982 as an economist and was posted to the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. In August 1995, the restructuring exercise merged the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development and the Ministry of Finance into the present-day Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, for which Case Muhakanizi played a pivotal role to establish fiscal discipline, which facilitated economic recovery and stability. But Honorable Speaker, Mr. Case Muhakanizi's excellent and exemplary performance, together with his respectable core technical and interactive capabilities, earned him a fast and steady rise through the ranks as follows. 1. From July 1988 to October 1991, he was appointed as a senior economist. Number 2. From 1991 to December 1992, Acting Commissioner for Macroeconomic Planning Division, the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. Number 3, from November 1993 to April 1995, he was appointed Acting Commissioner, Economic Advisor to Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. From April 1995 to August 1998, Mr. Muhakanizi was confirmed as a Commissioner, Economic Advisor to the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. From September 1998 to September 1999, he became Commissioner in charge of Economic Development Policy and Research Department. Number 6, from October 1999 to December 2004, Mr. Case Muhakanizi was promoted to Director, Economic Affairs, responsible for macroeconomic policy and planning, handling external debt issues, producing economic development plans, among others. From January 2005 to December 2005, he became Acting Deputy Secretary to the Treasury. From December 2005 to May 2013, Mr. Muhakanizi was appointed Deputy Secretary to the Treasury. Mr. Case Muhakanizi, number 9, retired in May 2013 after being appointed Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury. From May 2013 to July 2021, he served diligently as Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury. Honorable Speaker, number 11 is that from July 2021 till his demise, he has been Permanent Secretary, Office of the Prime Minister. Honorable Speaker and colleagues, Mr. Case Muhakanizi initiated and spearheaded a number of financial and economic reforms that have propagated economic recovery and stability. These include: 1, Integrated Financial Management System, IFMIS; Treasury Single Account, TSA; decentralization of the government payroll; improving budget formulation, implementation, and monitoring by using the output budgeting tool, OBIT; increasing budget transparency and public information through publication of quarterly releases in the media and the use of the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development budget website; facilitating the straight-through processing of salaries; electronic government procurement; foreign mission financial management systems. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Case believed his efforts would deliver better life for all public and civil servants and the other Ugandans. He believed in reduction of risks. Using his tenure as Permanent Secretary and Secretary to Treasury, he undertook the following key reforms: A, decentralization of processing and payment of salaries, pensions, gratuity, and arrears; program-based budgeting and program budgeting systems; public investment management systems; the Uganda Intergovernmental Physical Transfer Reform Program; online transfer information management system; budget transparency initiatives; Public Finance Management Act. Honorable Speaker and colleagues, due to his charisma, the late Case Muhakanizi worked with other government agencies and served on various boards as a member or chairperson. 1, Chairman, Board of Directors, National Housing and Construction Company. 2, Chairman, Board of Directors, Housing Finance Bank, Uganda Limited. 3, board member, Bank of Uganda. And 4, chairperson or ex-officio member, Economic Policy Research Center. That Honorable Speaker and colleagues, the late Muhakanizi is widely respected for his expertise in budgeting and financial management through the introduction of a medium-term expenditure framework, thus improving budget predictability and transparency. Mr. Case Muhakanizi has been a very hardworking, intelligent, sincere public servant whose contribution will always be remembered. That Honorable Speaker and colleagues, we have lost him at a time when the country needed him most. As government, we promise to sustain his legacy. Government wishes to extend profound sympathies to the family and the people of Uganda. May the Almighty God grant his soul eternal rest. That Honorable Speaker, thank you so much.
Thank you, Right Honorable Prime Minister. The seconder for the motion is the Leader of Opposition, Honorable Matthias Mpuga.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I join the Right Honorable Prime Minister and honorable colleagues in paying tribute to now the late Keith Muhakanizi, who has been Permanent Secretary of the Prime Minister and the former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, and the Secretary to the Treasury. On behalf of the team I lead in Parliament, Right Honorable Speaker, I'd like to extend our sincere sympathies to the bereaved family, staff, and management office of the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, and the people of Lyantonde and Rukongeri districts, and the country at large, for the loss of one of the most influential economists of our troubled times. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to invite my sister, the Honorable Mumba, to be calm. When I mentioned troubled times, she got a bit troubled, but I'm not about to raise any trouble. I'm only paying tribute to a man I knew and respected immensely as an economist and a man of his word, even when his word was as bitter as it came through. I don't know, Speaker, I last saw the late, I think 1.5 years ago. We crossed paths at a restaurant in town. I was with the family, and they came over and greeted us, and we shared a lot of banter. He used to refer to me as Munabudu, and calmly, and I was questioning that it was missing in action. That's when I learned that he's been suffering, and told me his ordeal, and I really felt terrible about him. And that's why the last we physically interacted, about 1.5 years ago in Kampala. That Honorable Speaker, the passing of Mr. Keith Muhakanizi marks the end of an era of someone in that position and generation who participated in the nation's economic recovery and development process. Joining public service as an economist in 1982, I was barely 7 years. Put him in the thickness of the economic recovery efforts. His name continued to be pronounced prominently in the years that followed up to 2018, when he was diagnosed with sickness that finally claimed his life. Right Honorable Speaker, Mr. Muhakanizi was a straightforward professional who always spoke his mind on policy matters, uncomfortable as sometimes would be to some authorities. Because of his straightforwardness, this country has lost, probably, and I'm using the word probably on purpose, the last brake and the controls on a vehicle called irresponsible budgeting. If his brakes were manual, I hope his successors, Mr. Ramadan Gobe and the team, introduced ABS brakes on our budgeting framework in memory of his almost physical efforts to exercise control over our budgeting processes. Certainly, Right Honorable Speaker, he was one of the high priests of the neoliberal Washington consensus. A very uncompromising high priest at that. I suppose their rector at the time was the Honorable Matthew Kaile, and their dogmatic positions on economics and the economy, the late Chris Kasami, the late governor of the central bank, Emmanuel Mtebile, and others could be seen in their well ingrained positions on how to recover Uganda's economy. And I hope and pray that the recovery that he imagined at the time can be carried on through now the official migrations which the Honorable Kasaija and team are leading in a form of a climb down from total neoliberalism to a bit of government involvement in key economic sectors without necessarily leaving it to the private sector. In the absence of Keith, Right Honorable Speaker, new fiscal habits like taking cash advances from the central bank without paying back were nurtured until they became monsters. In the next year's budget, for example, Parliament has been asked to approve repayment of a Bank of Uganda loan equivalent of 1.25 trillion as part of a bigger loan estimated at 4 trillion acquired from Bank of Uganda without parliamentary approval and beyond the provisions of the law. This is a loan that is not on our sovereign loan book, Right Honorable Speaker. I have spoken to this on this floor before. And in the absence of Keith, due to sickness, at the time when he was transferred to the Prime Minister, authorities pushed for commercial loans to be approved by Parliament to pay for supplementary budgets, including wages and other expenses like Tiaka Sugar Factory and Lubowa. Our candidate portfolio has lenders like Stanbic Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, and other commercial banks in the consortia provide budget support. I hope and pray that there are no street money lenders, because at this rate, it is scary, Right Honorable Speaker. The debt support service obligations arising out of these commercial loans are some of the reasons why we can't even patch our potholes in Kampala or even fund healthcare and education. Right Honorable Speaker, allow me briefly speak about Keith, the PS in the Office of the Prime Minister, as I conclude. Without preempting the long-awaited committee report on Wabati, I have no intentions of unsettling any member here of Parliament. I want members to stay calm and pay tribute to the departed comrade. I would like to say that I have in my possession evidence that the Office of the Prime Minister was an office that lacked professionalism. Keith joined the OPM in 2021, and they found all departments were headed by administrators, not professional technical officers. The mandate of the Office of the Prime Minister is primarily the coordination of policy development and implementation. Keith, as a policy-oriented person, wrote a memo directing that the iron sheet should not be given to politicians, including members of parliament, but chief administrative officers who would have them distributed to approved beneficiaries. That document, right, Honourable Speaker, is dated 19th December 2022. So he raised a red flag, but for our appetite, we didn't care. Right, Honourable Speaker, unfortunately, our colleagues, the ministers who touched these mabatis and the technical officers who received these instructions abused their offices by acting contrary to Keith's directive when he went abroad for treatment. Today, our colleagues, the honorable ministers and some colleagues in parliament are having sleepless nights because of Keith's sickness. Were he to be in office performing his functions, there's no doubt in my mind that the front bench, which is making rounds between the CID, court, and parliamentary committees, would be busy performing national duties. I am surprised, right, Honourable Speaker, that at this stage, the officers who ignored Keith's advice, the technical officers, and they threw our colleagues under the bus, that is commonly known, have not been charged yet of obvious counts like abuse of office and disregard of lawful instructions. Probably that could have ameliorated the kind of discomfort that has visited the homes and offices of our dear comrades. Before I take leave of this tribute, Honourable Speaker, allow me to retaliate what I said as we pay tribute to the late Dr. Emmanuel Mutebile, the former governor of Bank of Uganda, that senior office bearers who have reached retirement age and fall sick should be retired honorably. It is my view, it could be the wrong view, that probably Keith should have pushed on a little more and be given more time for resting and treatment. There was no reason why he should have been drawn into the stress of realigning OPM, including Mabat thieves. That's right, Honourable Speaker. In his memory, as Parliament, we need to further study reasons why he was so obsessed with reducing public expenditure, especially public administration. And in the subsequent obligations as Parliament, we need to clearly understand why we have a huge government, so many ministers. Some of them sometimes are very busy with the mundane things, meaning that critical issues are not available in their entities. The size of Parliament, where I'm a member, is a huge public concern. RDCs, deputy RDCs, constraining public resources are available for public expenditure, right, Honourable Speaker. Right, Honourable Speaker, I want once again to extend my sympathies to the family, to government, and the people of Uganda for this huge loss, and pray that the soul of the late Keith rests in eternity. I beg to submit.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition. Colleagues, I'm going to open up a debate and start with a person whom I know was extremely close to the family, very, very close. And that is General Jim Muhwezi, Honorable Jim Muhwezi. We shall use 3 minutes each.
Yeah, thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. As you said rightly, I know the late Keith Muhakanizi since childhood, because although he was laid to rest in Lyantonde in Kabula, his ancestral home is in Rurumbura, the old Rurumbura, which is now Rukunjiri in Buyanja, in Chitojo, Buyanja. Like myself, he comes from a family of the East African revivalists. These are the people, the awakened, the born again, the balokole here in Uganda, in Kiswahili, wa wokovu. These are people who took the teaching of Jesus Christ to another level, which played a very important role in the transformation of our societies. The likes of Simeon Nsibambi, Kigozi in Uganda, Kosia Sharita, Mujimba, Kabaza, Tunuka in Ankole, in the Kigezi, Bishop Chivengere, Yeremia Rwakatogoro, Daudi Kuratire, Yeremia Betsimbere, Samuel Katugugu, Erka Bugari, Thomas Kachiza, and many others. Semundi Mbirwe, in the Kanungu Rutagarkayo, and Chinanga, and so on. These people, you know, transformed our societies. Keith Muhakanizi comes from one family, late Reverend Canon Kajwenje, his father, and Yeremia Rwakatogoro, his grandfather, were among the pioneers in this direction. His character, which is being talked about, his honesty, his uprightness, and so on, all come from that background. A lot has been talked about his public life. I would like to talk as a friend and as someone who knows him and where he comes from, to confirm that he was also very philanthropic. He was very kind, very developmental oriented, supported initiatives of development. He was not a politician, but he built schools like Chitojo Primary School. His family, the Kajwenje family, built that school, of course, with his strong support. He was a friend. He had time to interact with us, friends. You know, amidst his very heavy schedule, he would find time to interact and to share his views on various subjects. We shall definitely miss him, but we know that he has left a strong legacy, and to the family, we condole you, but we know that he has left you a very, very strong base upon which you, especially the children, can build to improve on what he has left behind. We thank government for honoring him with this, with the unofficial burial. We thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for this session to pay tribute to late Keith Muhakanizi. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you, General Jim Muhwezi. I'll add on Honorable Matia Kasaija, who was Mr. Keith's supervisor at the Ministry of Finance.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And all of you, members of Parliament, who have come to recognize and speak about the late Keith Muhakanizi, with whom I served for over 10 years. Many things have already been said, I do not repeat them. But I will begin by, first of all, thanking you, Mr. Speaker, and the administration of Parliament for having organized this sitting. Keith, as I told you, when we were at Kororo, is a man who, first of all, respected authority. But authority appropriately applied. If he didn't apply, appropriately apply it, he would resist until you see his point of view. Regarding his performance of duty, you could hear what the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister has documented the line of responsibilities that he took. I had never heard any person complaining about that Keith has not done what he was supposed to do. Therefore, we need to copy, especially now I'm speaking to the young professionals, to copy his way of doing things. One of the characteristics of the late Keith was he would advise you as he knows. Some civil servants at times get frightened with the bosses. But Keith, whether you liked it or not, he would come and say, here, Minister, you are going wrong. No. And then, having a very versatile mind, he would even produce the law if it requires a law. If it's a policy matter, he would also bring a policy. So therefore, I'm calling upon the civil servants, especially those who are still new, really to emulate his way of doing things. Don't be fearful. Tell your boss what you know to be the truth and what you know is in accordance with the law or practices. Keith, when he fell sick the first time, because he came to ask me to go to hospital abroad, I said, you know, we have our own relationships, which I don't need to speak about now. I said, you are going, are you sure that that place will give you what you think? Then he produced me a letter, which was recommending to him that he should go to Turkey in a certain hospital to be treated. When he was there, almost every week, he would ring me, first of all, to say, how are things? Also, at times I would raise to him once in a while, I say, how are you performing? He would say, I'm performing very well. Minister, I'm performing very well. Don't worry. Then when he came back, before he went for this other treatment where unfortunately God called him, I said, Keith, how are you feeling? He says, I'm very fine. I'm doing very well. I said, are you sure? He said, yes. Because he had not, the families here can testify. The sickness did not depreciate him, if I may use that word. you could hardly tell, if you did not know him well, you could hardly tell that he is a sick man. So he went, and as usual, I was expecting that he would return to continue serving the country. He had so much passion for economic recovery and development that even when he was transferred to the Prime Minister's office, Keith, as I said somewhere, would never spend a week without coming to the ministry.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Time is up. We had 3 minutes. Can conclude.
I will conclude that I think we shall debate in my ministry to see how we shall document his work and how he did it for prosperity. May the good Lord rest Keith's soul in eternal peace until we also join him when our time comes.
Thank you. So the next priority I'm giving to the members of parliament from the area, starting with Honorable Enos Asimwe.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
I will come back to the front bench. I will be doing a mix. I don't want it to be a show of the front bench. Yeah.
Right Honourable Speaker, I want to support the motion from the Right Honourable Prime Minister that we pay tribute to the late Keith on 2 grounds, personal and otherwise. One, I've known Keith, I think, since late 90s when he started doing farming in the Antonde, or when he settled in the Antonde. And to be specific, in 2001, I was engaged in youth politics. And we went to him as young people in a group seeking support to hold a rally for the presidential campaigns in the Antonde. He told us, I'm not with you, I'm with you spiritually, but I'm giving you my money because I'm a citizen of the Antonde. He supported us. We held a rally. A few days later, NRM was victor. You remember 2001, there was a serious competition between, of course, FDC at that time. Okay, there was NRMO, but NRM has been there anyway. We after the presidential elections, anyway, after we won, he held a party for us at his house, at the farm. That's when I got to a chance to know him in person. And since then, he has been on our side. But 1 year later, I was at university at that time, second year. I lost my mother in an accident. And my father had passed on some years ago. One thing he committed to was being again with us all through. But I can tell you for the last 21 years plus, Keith has been with his word. Every time I've called on him, for any reason, he has been there. That's why I said I would talk about personal and possibly other official attributes of him. He has been there. So to me, I pay tribute to him as a person of his word. On 2 occasions, he made very critical decisions that I believe possibly made me who I am and why I'm in parliament. Without him, I believe I would possibly, being in parliament would have been being longer and harder. So I thank God that I happened to have known him.
Thank you, Honorable Enos. Honorable Kemlen Bechak. No, Honorable colleagues. You know, you want, Honorable, you can conclude if you had a point you wanted to conclude with.
Thank you so
but
much.
Just conclude, please.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. So you'll appreciate that speaking about Keith is not an easy thing to do, mostly when you know him. But my conclusion, right honorable speaker, are the two attributes about him: his time management and his decisiveness in decision making. I believe as government, we've lost a pillar, person who has made NRM and actually this government in power for so long. We must also appreciate that government is not about the political part, but even the technocrats, when they make it hard for you to run, it's not easy. So I want to thank him to have made his mark in making it easier and simpler for NRM for the last so many years that we've been in power. And I pray that may the Almighty God rest his peace and soul or in eternity and until we meet again.
Thank you, Honorable Enos. Honorable Woman MP Liantonde.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and the Right Honorable Prime Minister for the opportunity to pay tribute this August House to our fallen Keith and friend. I had an illustration because most of you are going to talk about Keith, the economist or something else, what he has contributed to the country and elsewhere. But I'm going to talk about Keith, the man from Liantonde. Keith, I'll start, he was a God-fearing and loving man. So at one time they were in church, our old church, and the son said, Daddy, this church is going to fall on us. I want to go out. So being a God-fearing man, he took the son out, but when he came back, he said, I must construct you a beautiful church. I ask you kindly, if time permits, if I get the permission, I'll put and show the members the church he built for us in Liantonde, a very beautiful church, and furnished it alone. Then faith and education go hand in hand. There was a church-founded school, secondary, near the church. He built it to a modern school, the Liantonde Secondary School, fully furnished it with computers and a very beautiful science laboratory. That is Keith. He was an environmentalist. Towards Liantonde, he had a very big plantation of trees, and he tried to make sure that wherever his land was bare, at least he put trees. And most of us have emulated him. For example, he had like 100 acres of eucalyptus and pine trees, and now I have 42 because of Keith, preserving the environment. That's the man we've lost in Liantonde. The Keith of Liantonde was a humble and down-to-earth man. For example, right away from the chairman LC1, to councillors, to we MPs, wherever we met him, he would say, Mukama wanje. That is in our language, meaning my boss. So you can imagine the way Keith was very humble. You are really going to miss Keith. I personally, I came to him when I was contesting in 2014. He said, there is no man I can give you that will make you win. But my advice to you, you have to go and be a good person as your dad is. He said, you must have Ubuntu. Actually, from Keith's whatever, my first slogan was, Omuntu w'abantu, a people's person. And indeed, from his humbleness, I also learned.
Yeah, Honorable, let me give you a minute to conclude.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So from him, I think that's why I've managed even to make it the second term, because he told me, if you're among people, you have to be a person, because these people that you meet on your way up, they are the same people who will bring you down. So I learned that from him. So we are going to miss our great brother in Liantonde, and may his soul rest in eternal peace.
Thank you. Next is the woman MP Rukunjiri, where he was born.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. I stand here to pay tribute to the late Keith Muhakanizi, a son of Rukunjiri district. My sympathies go to the family, the country, and the people of Rukunjiri, where he came from. Like they've said, he was a people person. He was committed to community development as well as institutional development. He shared his financial knowledge not only to the country, but also he went down on the grassroots and was able to help the people improve financially. He helped set up and start up Buyanja Sacco in Rukunjiri, which has grown to a loan portfolio right now is at 8.1 billion shillings and an asset base of 10.5 billion shillings. He made sure he attended AGMs whenever he was around. He provided financial assistance. He provided the first computers for this circle, and also the finances that helped put up the home of this circle were all his efforts. So as people of Rukunji, we shall miss this attribute. He also went ahead to acquire and help in setting up Buyanja Sacco sub-county headquarters. You know, when we got new administrative units in Rukunji, Buyanja, where he came from, we got a town council and a sub-county. So the sub-county did not have its office. He helped and lobbied for us and also gave us some financial support to start up this structure. And as we talk right now, it's their roofing. So we also thank him for that contribution. When we talk about schools and churches, I don't think I can complete this. Honorable Jim Muhwezi talked about Shitosho Primary School, but there are so many schools he touched in the district, including Kasheshe, Nyakabungo, and he awarded the students and teachers of these schools to encourage them to perform better. And also that included Kagati Primary School. He also equipped these schools with computers, staff quarters together with his family. So we are extremely at a loss of this great man, but we thank God that he shared whatever we had with the community. We can only pray that the good Lord grants him eternal rest. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Cooper. You're still writing notes. You know, I'm looking at colleagues who worked with case so much here during the budgeting process. No.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, allow me, on the behalf of the people of Kasilo, whom I represent here in this house, to pay tribute to Keith, a person I knew while I was the president of Makerere University Economic Society, because we used to invite him to give lectures to us, because I did economics like him, Bachelor of Science in Economics, and then later on the Masters in Economic Policy and Planning. When I joined URA, I continued interacting with him, the late. When I came to Parliament, especially in the accountability committees, Keith is a person you would hate and love. I remember at one time, Honorable Nathan Nandala was the chairperson of PAC. He threw papers at him. And everyone was like getting annoyed, but in the end, we ended up all laughing and he apologized. But that was him. He was a man who would not get annoyed and take grudge and keep it with him. That was him. A few days before he left, the last time he left for treatment, we met in the corridors on the first floor of Northern Wing and said, Elijah, where is your office? I said, here. So we entered the office. So he said, I asked him, how are you feeling? He says, I'm much better, but I will be going back in a few days for further management. But with God's grace, I think I'll be out of this danger. So it was a shock to me when I heard that Keith had passed on. It was very shocking and disturbing. I would always, wherever I would go to the World Bank spring meetings, which recently we would move with him. I moved with Honorable Honorable Minister of Finance last week with the him. You would feel his absence in those meetings because, as you all know, Keith was part and parcel of Minister of Finance because he lived, he worked, he got he put Uganda in that economic map when it comes to the issue of the economics of this country.
Honorable conclude, let me add you a minute. Yeah.
How I wish our colleagues had listened to his advice, what the chief leader of opposition here wouldn't be in this very ugly situation that would have been. And I think we miss such characters. And I think this time we must learn. To the family, we can only pray that the Almighty God gives you strength and comforts you at this time. And I want to applaud his wife, because when I listened to her in Colorado and what I read, how many women would remain in such a marriage? Because says after 2 weeks of the wedding, he lost his ring after coming back because 2 weeks after the wedding, he went to the US, he came back, there was no ring. When she asked, where is their wedding ring? He just laughed it off. How many women would have continued? Because he would think maybe he was somewhere. So we want to applaud the widow for being strong and strong. We only pray that may the Almighty God grant him eternal peace. Thank you.
Honorable Rumumba would have fought right there. So, opposition chief whip, Honorable Nambeshe.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, let me join colleagues and express my condolences to the bereaved family for the untimely demise of the Honorable Muhakanizi. Keith, I've given the word title honorable. You bear with me. We had not interacted much with him, except at one time when I had an opportunity to meet him in the VIP lounge at Entebbe when he was traveling to the usual annual meetings of IMF, the spring meetings of IMF and the World Bank. And we had a very fruitful interaction for almost 10 minutes. And he was very much concerned about Parliament. That was in the 10th Parliament. About why we are dragging our feet at slowing down on the creation of new administrative units, slapping a moratorium on the creation of administrative units, new districts, new municipalities, mention it. And in the conversation, we ended by me reading him like a book that he was committed to austerity measures, given that our economy, the meager resource envelope, and we have been slapped with all manner of shocks, including the devastating effects of COVID-19. And indeed, the high cost of administration is still a serious issue to contend with. As a speaker, Keith, even in the brief moment I spent with him, I realized, and even from the testimonies that I've been listening to from colleagues about him, he had fundamental character traits like the one of God-fearing, being sincere, and that of integrity, which I must salute. Mr. Speaker, even his last after transferring his services to OPM. The brief moment he has been has helped.
No.
Just bear with me. I'm about to conclude, by the way.
But you should have asked.
Oh,
Look, just conclude.
let me request in areas and conclude. Mr. Speaker, I think what the glowing tribute that the government should pay to the late Muhakanizi about the restructuring that he had recommended on OPM and about what he had done to help net elected leaders, because in the past we have seen the Kazindas, me who comes from a disaster-prone district of Duda, we are grappled with the serious issues of misappropriation until the advent of Muhakanizi, that the elected leaders this time round have fallen victims. I will not mention them. But my comforting words to the wife, to the widow, are that the bizarre irony of death is that you can never, however much you loved each other, you can never attend each other's funeral. You whom God has left behind, it is meant to strengthen the strong legacy that your beloved husband left behind. He will go down, and we have come here to eulogize a laborer, but his labor will remain and linger on for ages because of the good character traits which we have learned from him and the good testimonies we have about him. May God accord him eternal rest.
Thank you. Democratic Party Whip.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I join colleagues in paying tribute to the late Keith for the immense work he has done for this country. Right Honorable Speaker, as a young boy in P7, that was the first time I saw Keith. We used to pray at St. Augustine, Makerere, and as Okupa said, one afternoon after Mass, there was a public debate at Makerere. And that's when I saw Keith in the company of Amanya Mushega and the former security minister. They were discussing about structural adjustment. And that was when they were busy telling people how Uganda Commercial Bank must go. So from that time, as a little boy, I later on went and met him in his office with a friend, one Oded Ahimbisibwe, who was trying to get a job at URA. But when we went to Casey's office, he told Ahimbisibwe that, well, we can recommend you. I can give you a recommendation, but I will not authorize anybody to give you a job. I will give you a recommendation. When you pass the interview, that will be your luck. Later on, when I joined Parliament, I knew how strong Keith was. Because in this Parliament, when you see ministers leaving the house smiling.
Conclude.
Thank you. The next thing you'd be sure of, they will come back gloomy. Why? Because the excitement they left the house with, knowing that the house has approved some money to be spent, Keith would put a roadblock. He would put a brake unless he's sure on how the money is going to be spent, and he was strong in his position. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you. Now, colleagues, I want first pick 3 people, and then I'll open. Those 3 people, I'm going to describe them my way. One, the Committee on Finance. was supervising case as a sectoral committee. And we have the person who, because under Chairman Kefa, they didn't interact much, but Honorable Pachuto was the vice chairperson finance committee and for the last 10th parliament. So they interacted a lot. Then two, among us, we have people whom case supervised, either as a staff under finance or representing certain organizations. So I'll pick specifically, but each one of you 2 minutes, because now we are on 2 minutes. Two people, no, three. One, Max Sochai, who was one of the senior staff in the Ministry of Finance. Then Honorable Dr. Emre Kugonza, who was the chairperson, Uganda Investment Authority, and Honorable Biaka Tonda, who was heading the custodian board. Then I open up to all of us colleagues. 2 minutes each, and this time I'm not giving you any extra. Once you're cut off, that's it. Honorable Pachuto.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I stand here to join you and the members of Parliament as we pay tribute to a strong man, a dedicated man, a man who indeed respected authority, as my Minister of Finance has stated. Right Honorable Speaker, one time we invited the late Keith to our committee, and we insisted no other person from Ministry of Finance should come other than him. And when he came, he told us he was on his way to see the doctor. He was already ill. But on his way, he got a call that the committee had wanted him to attend in person. That is the day I learned who the late Keith was. Among us members of Parliament, there was a feeling that he was an arrogant man, but I want to tell the House here and the country at large that the late Keith was not an arrogant man. One of the things he told us that day, I could not believe it that he said it under the microphone. I'll not go into details of that. I asked my chair that day, why did we have to invite this man? Hear what he's saying, telling the country. But Mr. Honorable Sassis told me that is Keith. And indeed, I learned him that day. I want to agree with whoever has talked about the late Keith as a person who wished that we control our expenditures as a country. One of the things he was against, and I believe up to his death, was creation of administrative units. Honorable members, as we pay tribute to the late Keith today, and as we process the budget today, let us be.
Thank you, Honorable Max Sochai.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I rise, Right Honorable Speaker, to join others in paying tribute to my former boss, late Muhakanizi Keith. I last talked to late Keith Muhakanizi in February this year. I had gone to his office to seek appointment to meet him during the whole week, just before Easter. And then after discussing policy issues, he told me, Max, go back, let us meet after Easter. And indeed today is after Easter. The Keith I knew. The year 1998 marked a turning point in my relationship with Keith Muhakanizi. That was a time when the then Minister of Planning and Economic Development, on the one hand, was being merged with the then Ministry of Finance on the other. At that time, I was working with his younger brother, Julius Kajwenje, in the External Aid Coordination Department. And Keith was in the Macroeconomic Planning Department in the same ministry. After the merger, the effectiveness of the merger actually was realized around about 2000. Keith held my hand one time during lunch break and walked me right to his office and told me, from today on, you are with me in Economic Development Policy and Research Department. My journey in relationship with Keith began from that point. Then we toured the entire Economic Affairs Directorate. We moved to Macroeconomic Policy Department, to investment department and back to economic development policy and research department. At a time when I was leaving for politics, he called me and asked me, Max,
Thank you, Honorable Datsap. Yes, Honorable Dr. Emre Kugonza. Just for the record, we know you're not mad. Dr. Emre Kugonza.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I would like to, first of all, thank the Prime Minister for moving a very comprehensive motion, and which I fully support. I had the opportunity to work closely with the late case Muhakanizi. Immediately, I was appointed the chairperson of the board of Uganda Investment Authority by none other than Honorable Matia Kasaija, the Minister of Finance. I went to report for duty. I did a quick scan of what was at table. And after about 2 weeks, I went to Casey's office, just as part of the induction. He said, have you had an opportunity to do a scan about what is pertaining to the authority? I said, yes. Because like when I interacted with the members of the board and the staff of Uganda Investment Authority, what was most prominent from their side was lack of funding, that the authority was inadequately funded. But my quick assessment, the problem of the authority was not around resources. It was the way it was being governed, it was the way it was being administered. And one of the fundamental challenges was in the industrial park of Namamve, an industrial park of 2,200 acres of land, which had actually been parceled and shared out. They had been allocated to a number of people, and many of these were speculators. I said, we need support to ensure that we reclaim the land of the industrial park for the beginning, and we prove a point to Ugandans and the world that we can be able to perform. He said, you have gotten the problem. I will offer you my full support, and certainly the minister and the other members.
Thank you. Honorable Katonda.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Clerk, I hope it's 2 minutes because
I worked with Keith, like the Right Honorable Speaker mentioned, and he was a very, very good team player, highly consultative. In my office, he made my work easier because you could find the circulars and guidance on top of the laws. And within that, it helped me. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, is a man with technical expertise that we need at this time to grow the economy. Because like the Asian Tigers in 1970s, 1997 had challenges of slowdown, but they had make a paradigm shift, and such ideas were possessed by Keith Muhakanizi. So it's a very big loss to the country. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Colleagues, you know, the committee is going on, the budget committee, because of the deadline. Otherwise, we wouldn't have wanted to really be moving up and down. But just for the information of our visitors, we have the budget committee going on, and the rate case would have wanted us to finish the budget in time. So that's why you see some members moving out. They are going to attend to that. Colleagues, we have relatives who are here, and they are led by Mrs. Janet Muhakanizi, the widow, on the technical bench. We have Miss Catherine Muhakanizi. We have Miss Tera Mhozi. We have Miss Marian Zache. We have Mr. Abasa Dennis, that's a brother. We have Mrs. Foy Abasa. That is, we have Miss Win Kachinoni. We have Mr. Abel Katembwe, who spent around 6 months with Keith in hospital, so in Turkey, and gave him really a lot of support. We have Mr. Julius Kajwenje, who is we have Miss Jennifer Komhendo, Ms. Susan Akatunga, and Mr. Nathan Bugari. Oh, I'm reading on the list. You know, I'm not scanning around. Yeah. So I have a list. I have, everyone is recognized who is here. Yeah. Colleagues, also, we have more friends and relatives. We have the ambassador of Italy to Uganda, His Excellency Massimiliano Mazzanti, who is a very good friend to the family. We have Professor William Bazeyo, who is a very, very good friend to he has moved out, but we had Mr. Ramadan Ngovi, a permanent secretary and secretary to the Treasury. We have Mr. William Biarhanga, former Attorney General. We have Honorable Mwesgwa Rukutana, former Deputy Attorney General. We have Mr. Bob Kabonero, a businessman. We have Mrs. Susan Muhwezi, Presidential Advisor on AGOA and the Trade. We have Dr. Samuel Mugase, Executive Director, NADS. Of Mr. Kenneth Mugambe, former Director Budget at the Ministry of Finance, Planning. Protocol, please update my list because I can see, for example, some very important people from business sector who are here, like Mr. Musinguzi Garuga and his dear wife, Dr. Peace Musinguzi. They are here. So I need the full list so that I'm able to recognize everyone who is here. Uganda Manufacturers Authority, Uganda Manufacturers Association is also represented here. It has Mr. Mubiru Richard, Board Director. We have Mr. Stephen Impaji, Board Director. Mr. Gaba Collins, Acting Manager. Mr. Mrema Hakim, Policy Analyst. They've all come to join us as we pay respect to the late case Muhakanizi. We shall be recognizing more people after protocol has brought me the list. So I had finished with Honorable Biakatonda. Now the business community, Honorable Omara. And then, yeah, I'm going, Honorable colleagues, each and every one of you is going to be given a chance who are here to talk about case. 2 minutes, no adding anymore.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the motion. Right Honorable Speaker, the late Keith belonged to a team of 3 who in the earlier days established a microeconomic policies for our country in the late 1980s that led to macroeconomic stability and the growth in the later years. He worked together with late Professor Mutabile and the late Chris Kasami. Right Honorable Speaker, they confronted very difficult policies at the time of liberalization and privatization. They were very, very painful to the country, but they were able to implement them very well. Right Honorable Speaker, the late also acted according to the law. As you have noted, this country is run under a presidential system where directives are normally given all the time. But with him, whether you have come with a letter from the president, he would make sure that you follow the law. And I hope that Dr. Ramadan would be able to pick up the leaf from the late Keith. At a personal level, Right Honorable Speaker, when they were looking for a board member at the Housing Finance Bank, they looked for my CV, which I sent. I was appointed without him seeing me or even talking to me. But later in life, when I met him and he said, "You are Domara," I said, "Yes." He said, "Your CV is very good." And then he said, "You must believe that the system works. Even if we didn't see you, we are able to point you on the basis of your credentials." Lastly, Right Honorable Speaker, we met during PACOP times. And one of the things that worried him was the size of government. And one of the things he alluded to that at the OPM, he had about 14 ministers, and when they would be having a meeting, it was like a war zone because of.
Thank you. But I want to confirm if we are giving 2 minutes to members. It sounds like, yeah, just conclude.
Yes. to downsize government, downsize parliament, downsize local governments so that the size of public administration can actually go down. And lastly, the late case was concerned about our revenue collections, our DRMS strategy, and Ramadan is here. We just need to make sure, since now we don't have resources coming from outside to fund our budget, we must make sure that everyone who should pay taxes must pay. We are meant to put in place a world-class hospital at Lubowa. It has not come to fruition. I think we are going to follow it up and make sure that it is fully established so that all of us, whatever the kind of sicknesses, we get treated in our own country. I submit, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Parliamentary Commission used to be case supported us so much. Honorable Rakajara.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Right Honorable Prime Minister for the motion to give a tribute to our brother, Keith Muhakanizi. I met Keith in 2004 when I married in their family. And then I got an opportunity to work with Keith at the board of compliance committee, and the Bank of Uganda used to greet us together. I learned a lot from him, from his professionalism. Hero came when I introduced the private members bill on minimum wage. He tried to convince me to abandon it, that it's not good for the economy. I insisted I will not tell you the words he used, but we remained friends. We remained friends, and the things that I learned from him because of time is that he was too professional. Most public servants, whenever they enter in the meeting, they first read the mood of the boss. And therefore they act like how the boss wants to act. They will never tell the boss the truth. They will never give professional advice. They will just say, yes, 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 what do you think? So, but I want to thank Keith that he acted professionally, did everything professionally, and I wish our public servants would emulate him. I've been a commissioner in this parliament. The staff will first.
Thank you. Honorable Nifakayo, Honorable Kumugaudia. Then I called for the Shadow Minister for Finance because they are running the budget. I told him this is the right time to come in, and he goes back.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I support the motion, and I want to join the rest of my colleagues and you to condole with the family. Right Honorable Speaker, much has been said about Keith, the economist, but I want to talk about Keith, the family man. Right Honorable Speaker, colleagues, I came to know Keith through his dear wife, Janet, and Winnie Katinoni, who at that time were my sisters. And when Janet came and said that he was going to get married to Keith, at first I had some doubts in me until I looked at Keith closely and I saw in him a committed man, a family man, and I had I always said, yeah, I think this is the right man for you. I am happy, Janet and my sister Win, you have worked together with Keith, stay strong, and Keith lived to his family values. Right Honorable Speaker, Keith valued his family, that he never brought it into the public domain. We mostly see when people are in big offices, public offices, they try to bring their families out, but Keith was very protective and he could not put his family to any distrust in the public. He was a parental caring man, caring husband, very lively, and he loved his family. I knew Keith one time he asked me and said, Monam, meaning sister-in-law, how did you go to Uganda?
Thank you. Honorable Kumugabrie.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I joined the House to pay tribute to a patriotic Ugandan, Keith Muhakanizi, who served our country in various portfolios. On my behalf, and on behalf of the people of Okoro County in Zombo District, would like to send our sincere condolences to the family and the entire country at large. Keith saw the reform whose objective was better service delivery and socio-economic transformation of our country. He was an assertive leader who acted within the law for better checks and balances. He has managed to put up his name for the right reasons. An icon for fighting corruption. And Right Honorable Speaker, I would only like to thank the government for offering him an official burial. May the Lord rest his soul in eternal peace.
Thank you. Shadow Minister of Finance.
Right Honorable Speaker, I stand here to join the rest of the colleagues in paying tribute to a man that has made a tremendous contribution to the well-being of our people. If anyone is an economist, we know that the best way to secure yourself is to secure the well-being of everyone. The likes of Keith had a talent to thrive in a private sector and be so rich that they chose for all their life to serve our country and serve the interest of everyone and to uplift the well-being of every Ugandan. And therefore, we stand here to celebrate a life. We stand here to celebrate an economist. We stand here to celebrate a man who spent so many hours of his life, sacrificed family time to serve our country. For whatever could have gone right or wrong, we are here to say he is the finest of Ugandans. He is one of those people who cared a little more that our country and our countrymen can do better. And therefore, we will need to pay tribute to a man of his standing. I also know that people like Keith, for when you look at where the economy was so many 20 years ago and where we have reached, we may look at figures and say they are not miserable, they are not the best we could, but what were they like so many years ago? What were they like? What were the country looking like so many years ago? Therefore, we are here to celebrate a man who has accomplished a lot, walked his distance, and what is really unique about him, quite often,
ministers were given 3 minutes, so conclude.
Quite often, the height of civilization is hypocrisy. The lot of people we meet who we call very civilized are normally very hypocritical. They don't mean what they say. They give false smiles. Keith was not an hypocrite. He was true to himself. If you are wrong, he tells you if you are wrong. If you are going to steal iron sheets, he will tell you it is a bad thing. Then you go and steal them, you suffer the consequences. Therefore, I pay tribute to a tremendous Ugandan. May God rest his soul in eternal peace.
Honorable Rukari, Honorable Repere. Then Honorable Tom Bright.
Thank you. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. I represent Mbara City North, and Keith was our in-law. Janet being our daughter, Janet being my sister, I am here to pass on a message from Barastate North about our condolences to the family. I knew Keith through Janet in 1997, when Janet was doing her businesses here on Ginger Road. I knew Keith while I was a consultant for government doing public procurement auditing. And I'm happy in the processes, in the reforms, they talked about Keith. Public procurement systems, Keith played a very big role in terms of reforming, changing from the Central Tender Board, if you remember, the Central Purchasing Board to PPDA in 2001. I remember with Keith, many people he trained as a technical person, including many PSCs now. During then, I remember Minister of Education. By then, the PS was Mr. Rubanga, there was Vigirmana, there was Doreen Katsime. He would simplify, make sure we train these people in order for them to understand procurement procedures, in order for them not to make mistakes. No wonder I'm happy, even in OPM. I last met Keith around October. He called me and actually told me this statement. I asked him, how come you're giving?
Thank you. No, Honorable Repe.
Yeah, thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to join the rest of the House in paying tribute to the late Keith Muhakanizi. I knew him as someone very astute, intrepid, brilliant, vivid, and also conspicuous, and more importantly, very bold person, which a person like me supports and professes and practices. I had the opportunity to closely interact with him. One, he was a chair of the board of Uganda Energy Credit Capitalization Company, where I was a director of finance and administration. And then lately, when I was a technical advisor on corruption and audit with accountability sector in the Ministry of Finance. I just want to give one interaction I had with him. I was managing a European funded fund, and one of the institutions we were supporting was Ministry of Finance. One officer then approached me and wanted to be funded to go for a workshop in the UK, and somehow I resisted. Because of the resisting, I was summoned to the PSST. He himself summoned me and called me that I have staff here who I must train, and this staff needs to be supported. He told me categorically, this staff is actually going for a gradation, not a workshop as she has alleged. That demonstrated someone very honest. And you know, honesty is where even if you have the luxury not to tell the truth, you talk to you say it. Imagine I wasn't someone very important, but he was able to that time tell me the truth about an officer who was lying. That's the person I knew and feel that such are people we need in the service. I really hope the big shoes.
Thank you. Now, colleagues, you don't need to rob me. We have just started parliament. Where are you going? You want to speak and go? Yeah, we are here. So just sit comfortably. I will pick you. Because I know you want to speak and you go. And if you rob me, I won't pick you. I'm seeing cheats coming. I'm seeing signs. Please don't smile at me when you've not been smiling. I've been here. You've not been smiling at me. Now you're trying to smile. So please. Yes, Honorable Tom Bright.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. We have learned a lot from our elder. We have made a lot of research about him. We are aware that he introduced the budget finance management reforms, which has helped our country, the process, and has helped us to enactment of the Public Finance Management Act 2015, which regulates the budget process and public finance practices of this country.
Right Honorable Speaker, as a country, we have lost a person who would have pushed us to middle income status. And I'm sure that was his dream, to see everybody moving from the sorry state to a level whereby we can manage ourselves. As we are right now, Right Honorable Speaker, we are suffering. We are trying our level best to make sure to foot all our bills, even to handle our own budget. And I'm sure all good things we do in this life always come back. It's the only one man who remembered where he came from. Many of us, after getting money, we forget where we come from. I've heard testimonies from honorable colleagues. He came from Rukunjiri, he settled in the Antonde, but later he went back and did a lot in Rukunjiri. Such a wonderful man, my soul will be remembered in this.
Thank you, Honorable Amero, Honorable Tebandeke, Honorable Wako, Honorable Kajwenje.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the Right Honorable Prime Minister for moving this motion. I stand up to second the motion just for one thing. Right Honorable Speaker, I didn't have a lot of time to meet Keith, but one time when we were sitting in a select committee of the Standard Gauge Railway, we had an opportunity to sit with him to find out the cost of the Standard Gauge Railway. Right Honorable Speaker, I found out that Keith is someone who speaks his word, and whatever he says comes from his heart. He was not someone whom you could easily corrupt. He was not someone who could deviate from what he has said. Whether it is wrong, whether it is right, he would stand by his word. And what I wanted to say on the floor of the House today is that how many of us are willing and are ready to follow and to learn from the example that Keith has left behind. We are here busy lamenting, saying he has been a good person, but we can still be good people. From what he has done, we can also follow and learn something out of it. It is very unfortunate that even when he warned some ministers here about the Mabati, they could still not accept to listen. And yet he was our own hope, only hope that we had, that he was going to change the office of the Prime Minister because something was going to be good there. We have had a lot of scandals in the office of the Prime Minister, and his transfer there meant a lot for this country. It is very unfortunate that he has gone, but I know that God loved him more than we do. I want to thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity, and I pray that his
Honorable Tebandeke, Honorable Wako, and then Honorable Kajwenje.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. According to the move of the motion, I believe I'm a spiritual brother of the late Keith. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm a pastor, and he's a born-again Pentecostal believer. And I bring to your attention that wherever we celebrate to pay tributes, I should be recognized under that perspective. Right Honorable Speaker, about the causal factor.
We have members of parliament, we don't have pastors. So it's not part of your CV, but we congratulate you on that.
All right. Right Honorable Speaker, the causal factor for the death of our brother is the multi-organ failure, which is caused by the dysfunction of the body organs. This has become a sequential effect that has affected and taken up very many of our colleagues, including the former Speaker, the late Lokech, the late Mayombo, but we are here paying tributes with no solutions. I beg that when we will analyze the effects and the causes, most of you, as I look at you, bear the signs, and you are going to die. More so people that side, apart from you, the Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, the effect and the cause of this is partly because due to lack of proper planning in terms of service delivery to reach the common man, more so in reference to health facilities, education, transport, and respect to rule of law that causes pressure, fatigue, and results to multi-organ failure Hence, if the government can channel and embark into the phenomenon. Thank you.
Now, the honorable colleague is right. We are all going to die, including him and me. So the problem, if he had said when, then we would have an issue. If he had said next week, but on dying, we shall all die. Honorable Wako?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Mine is a request. We have had a lot good things, actions, which were done by the late Keith Muhakanizi. I pray that because of all Keith's good ideas, I pray that all his ideas, circulars, be put in a compendium to guide expert-led discussions to grow the economy of this country. May the Lord rest his life in internal peace.
Thank you. Minister of Finance, take up that seriously, and OPM. Honorable Kajwenje.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity I raise on behalf of the people of Nyawushozi to support the motion to pay tribute to an illustrious son of the Republic of Uganda. Right Honorable Speaker, we don't speak to the dead. We speak about the dead. We highlight their traits and attributes to inspire the living to do even better. May I highlight just three? The late Keith Muhakanizi was a stickler to punctuality. He was so punctual. I guess this is what made the basis for his excellent service and success in every activity he touched. Two, honesty. He was so honest. He was honest to his leader, the President of the Republic of Uganda, to his ministers, to his fellow colleagues, to relatives and friends. Three, he gave dedicated service to the Republic of Uganda. He was a reformist. He never feared to change anything for good. I pray that those of us who are living in whatever activity that we touch on, ask yourself, what would Keith have done? What time would he have arrived in office? What decision would he have been? What advice would he have given? May the life, may the soul of Keith rest in eternal peace. May the void that he has left behind for the family, friends, and relatives and the government be fulfilled by God.
Thank you. Honorable Kamateneti, Honorable Mawanda, and Honorable Otkoro Sam.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. On my behalf and on behalf of people of Ntungamo, I bring my sincere sympathies to the family of Keith and her entire country. Right Honorable Speaker, this country has lost so many people to cancer. Yes, we've tried as Parliament, as government of Uganda, to equip Mulago Hospital, but still it is being overwhelmed by numbers. I urge this Parliament, this August House, to make a deliberate effort, allocate more money to Ministry of Health. We equip our regional hospitals, our district hospitals. We reduce on the number of patients who come to Mulago and get stranded because people are so many. We must put our priorities right. Two, to get competent and confident leaders, civil servants like Keith Muhakanizi, we must stop the habit of recruiting people basing on who we know rather than what you know. We must stop this as a country. As politicians, we must have our eyes on and hands off. That's why you find ministers, members of parliament are everywhere, and we end up taking this country nowhere. Let's do our part as leaders. We do our oversight. We do right budgeting, and let technical people do their work. That's when we shall take this country where it is supposed to be. May the soul of late Keith Muhakanizi rest in eternal peace.
Honorable Mawanda.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker.
I also support the motion raised by the Prime Minister. Right Honorable Speaker, I knew Keith for a very long time, but I don't want to go into those details. And I would like to, a lot has been talked about him. I want to talk about him on two things. One, people say Keith was a stubborn man, but his stubbornness at one time saved him. Around 2014, people wanted to frame him. They had taken money to his office to drop it there so that he could be framed. He was out in a meeting. When he came back, he found people seated at his reception. He abused them and said, I don't want to see anybody here. If you have nothing to do, just get out of my office. Those people who had the money were part of the group that wanted to see him. Then after, when he chased everybody, I found them talking about it, how they had lost the deal of framing him. I told his friend to find out whether what they were saying was right. I told a friend of his called Kenneth Mugambe that I found people talking about this. Can you find out whether it is true or not? Indeed, he found out and he found it was true. So his stubbornness there and arrogancy saved him. Secondly, Right Honorable Speaker, the case we are talking about was a committed man. He really loved this country. Very many people have talked about him. Case would tell you, I am going to do this, and he would do it. I am not going to do this, whether you like me or not, I will not do it. And that is the case we are talking about. The best thing we can do for him is to emulate the good things he has done for this country, and we do them. That's when we keep remembering poor Keith Muhakanizi.
Thank you. I just for our guests in the gallery, we don't clap, we don't chant, we don't, we nod in appreciation where we are happy. So just for the information. And also honorable colleagues. Honorable to call some, then I'll pick Honorable Jonathan Ebwat. Oh, no.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Just wait to call. I'll pick Honorable Moses Kabusu. I'll pick, you see, I have colleagues who came here who started with us. So when you see me looking at my paper, okay, that's what I'm doing. So I'm balancing all sides, okay? So I'll first have Honorable Moses Kabusu. I add on Honorable Remricha has moved up. Yes, Honorable Remricha. And then Honorable Ababiku, is she around? Oh, she moved her out. Honorable Wachikona, David. I keep picking and coming back because if one side talks and finishes, then we won't have a balance in the house.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. On behalf of Palace Account and my own behalf, I join the rest of the colleagues to pay my tribute to the late case. Personally, I never met him, but I used to follow him, especially when we used to follow him when he was meeting the parliamentary committees. To the family, I join the rest to send you the strength you need and the courage that you need most to face days ahead without him. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Thank you, Honorable Kabusu.
Mr. Speaker, as we eulogize about the life of the fallen Keith Muhakanizi, every member of public must be concerned that Keith, in his position and influence, was a man who would let go what is not his. There are people, I remember in last parliament, there were members of this house that were indicted on cheap offenses and the anti-corruption court for soliciting bribes. He did not do that. Mr. Speaker, I'm a member of the FDC. Whereas Keith was a born of Ruhunjiri. He had a position and influence. He did not use his office and influence and the money to torture people of the opposition. Everyone knows that during his time when he was PS Minister of Finance is when Dr. Besigye gave a lot of hard time to the ruling government. He did not use his office to buttress him. I learned from him that even when he's fallen, all other people with offices must let go what is not theirs. Keith did so. Mr. Speaker, in Kalangala, Keith was a board member of a company called the Kalangala Infrastructure Services. Those of us in Kalangala celebrate him, that company of theirs has contributed tremendously to infrastructure development in public partnership with the government. And the people of...
Thank you, Honorable Remricha. Then Honorable Wachikona David.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. On my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Ntoroko, I join the rest of the members and Parliament of Uganda to pay my tribute to the fallen hero, Keith Muhakanizi, the Great. Keith loved his country and served it diligently. Keith had a spirit of nationalism and Pan-Africanism. He dedicated his entire life in serving his country. Keith worked tirelessly for revival and restoration of our economy. Keith was a corrupt-free man. He believed in clear and law-bound procedures. Keith never believed in shortcuts or kickbacks. There are some people, and that earned him so many names. A rigid man, proud, but he meant well for our country. Keith believed in systems and independence of institutions. He disregarded talks of order from above. Keith never wanted to hear that. Those ones you wouldn't talk to Keith. So Keith wanted to do the right things. Keith spoke hard truth. Sometimes people in offices want to say things are under control, I'm in charge, but Keith never gave misleading statements. Keith used to tell you what is on ground and the truth and hard truth. And lastly, the Honorable Speaker and Honorable colleagues, anybody who will come in that position should think of restructuring the office of the Prime Minister. They should carry on with that so that that office is streamlined, so that we really did.
Thank you, Honorable Wachikona.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. On behalf of people of Bugishu, and on behalf of all the pilots, I was in charge of that Civil Aviation Academy for training. I bring thanks for what Keith Muhakanizi did for us. The UN owned flying school during the community. But after the community collapsed, then we had to be under something to get money to buy fuel and to pay foreign instructors who are then in Soroti. I was the director appointed by the President of the Republic of Uganda. And I had also to get what to tell the people. We were not in the budget of the government, but the advisor then to the Minister of Finance, consultant, is the one who created what we call contributions to international institutions. And yet the institution was in Soroti here. And we had to run, I was the director there for 10 years. We had to run under that arrangement, training pilots, training engineers, even flight operations officers under the system which was yet to be established. Keith, you spoke, you visited us, you told us what to do, and we followed it.
Thank you. Honorable Isa, Honorable Kwizera, Honorable Peter Werike, Honorable Keo. I know these 5 gentlemen usually come in time.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the people of Muhakanizi East, Kakume District, want to thank the Right Honorable Prime Minister for pushing for the motion, and want to be part of one of the honorable members who is paying tribute to the late Keith. The late Keith is seen as a person who has been devoted, a person who has been focused, a person who has been determined, hardworking, a person who had passion for his job, for his country, to fight for his country, to fight the indebted debts we had in our country. He's a person who was patriotic to see that our country is moving forward. So what do we learn from this? That these people, all of us who are having all government offices, that we should learn, we should love our country. When I was reading what he used to do, he's a person who would stand on his 2 legs. Whether the president is talking on a hierarchy, he would stand and tell the president that, no, this is wrong or right. He is an open-minded person. He was an open-minded person. And this is what, as a country of Uganda, needs from us leaders. This is, you should not be hypocritic to show that someone should love you. You rather tell someone, whether bad or good, to move our country forward. But some people, when they see the president, they fear to tell him the truth, whether bad or good, to move our country forward. They just want to praise him, tell him good things, so that maybe they can get good position. Yet instead of focusing to move our country forward. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to...
Honorable Kwizera.
Right Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Right Honorable Speaker, I'll talk about late Keith as my friend and the person you knew very well. But to me, I wouldn't end here by talking and we end only talking. I would appeal to government, if they are serious with what they are saying, to name one of the roads in Kampala against his name, so that we can now remember him forever. Secondly, I knew Muhakanizi very well, that the cost of error to him was very bad. So he wouldn't deceive the president. Some of these people don't know the cost of error in decision making. Muhakanizi knew the cost of error, that deceiving the head of state would be bad, not because they wanted jobs. So I honor him, and I know that where we are economically, it was mainly because of him. Another thing is that he was an effective listener, and he never looked at issues with political lenses, but professional and economic lenses. He wouldn't deceive the president that we have enough money in the granary, so we are going to do. He wouldn't excite the president that there is enough money. So we do have realistic budgets and realistic statistics. And like some people who we know that are misleading the president, as a chief finance officer or a chief accounting officer of government, he really had hands-on on permanent secretaries. Until now, that even when he tried to restructure the Minister of Prime Minister's office, where you have a mini cabinet of 11 ministers, where you have a mini cabinet, you cannot avoid conflicts. And we see now that because of the conflicts in the Prime Minister's office, now the lot is coming out. So I would think that since he was he had highest level of performance and integrity, Honorable Speaker, I know that Mr. Muhakanizi believed in the free market economy. He never wanted to support individuals against other individuals. That's why you find that now.
Thank you. Just for clarification purposes, in my interaction with the family, Honorable Kwizera, my interaction with the family, Case was a very humble man who doesn't want anything named after him. He only needs us to do what is right for the country. So a road is what, that's not case for you. So let's keep that Honorable Werie, and then Honorable Kayo, then Honorable Ewaru.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I also want to join my colleagues in paying tribute to our late Keith Muhakanizi and state that when I was a workers leader, I'm now in another level. The issue of restructuring was going to take away many workers in this country. And I was a little bit worried that Keith is going to throw us down in this country. Along the way, I was only able to convince him on two companies. One was National Water. Don't privatize. Give us time and we see how we can get resources. And he said, I will not send money of government National Water. Use your own resources and see how we improve. That's how that National Water has remained. NSSF here, Parliament had come up to liberalize. He said, Keith, workers' money are going to be taken by people. Stop that bill. And that is how we managed to save this workers' house at now 17 trillion because of Keith. Finally, in meetings, the meetings we have had with Keith takes 15 minutes. And just through his communication, he will answer what you are going to say. Beyond 15 minutes, he will leave you in the boardroom. That's the person I knew. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Thank you. Honorable Kayo.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the people of Bukoly Islands and on my own behalf, allow me send my condolences to the family, friends, and in-laws of Keith Muhakanizi. I knew Keith in the 9th Parliament when he appeared before our committee, and everybody was very bitter because ministries, departments, and agencies were always throwing the blame to Keith. He told us, I know colleagues, you are very bitter, but I'm going to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth. He told us that if you are to cut your coat, you must know the piece of cloth you have. The economy we are dealing with has got a small pass, and therefore when we are allocating funds, we must do it according to our pass. All members were very bitter, but that was the truth. That was the Keith I knew. Actually, he was a true Muchiga, and he stood by his words. And Right Honorable Speaker, it also brings me to another issue of how critical we should look at Mulago Cancer Institute. Some of us who have got patients in that place, it is so painful to go through the Cancer Institute. How I wish that today we look at the Cancer Institute, allocate money, and make sure that this place is well equipped for even people from Namayingo to access these services. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Thank you, Honorable Jonathan Ewaru, Honorable Court Boniface. The whips, I'm coming to them at the end. No, Honorable Court Boniface, Honorable John Taylor, and then Milton Muuma.
Right Honorable Speaker, the man called Keith Muhakanizi did his job and stabilized our economy. But I'm going to make a comment on our broken healthcare system in the country. Right Honorable Speaker, just like our principal, the leader of the opposition said, the death of this man should be a wake-up call, not only to this parliament, but to the NRM government. Right Honorable Speaker, many of our people have died in foreign countries. For the purposes of record of our Hansard, the Right Honorable Speaker of this parliament died in a foreign country. The governor of the central bank, Mutabile, died in a foreign country. Suleiman Chigundu, who was the chairman of the FDC, died in a foreign country. General Pecos Kutesa died in a foreign country. The Orthodox Archbishop, Jonah Luanga, died in a foreign country. This is not only an indictment to this parliament, but also to the NRM government. I want to appeal that as we are burying as we are paying tribute to this man, let us invest in the healthcare system, not only in Mulago, but in all our health system in the country. When you look at today, Right Honorable Speaker, if I collapse here now, you will order a chopper to take me to the United States. You will order me to be taken to Nairobi. What about our voters in Shiema? What about our voters in Soroti? I want to appeal that we are in a budget cycle. Our colleagues, members of parliament, let us...
Thank you. Colleagues in the gallery this afternoon, we have our visitors whom I had not yet recognized. Mrs. Grace Kahoza is with us in the gallery. Mrs. Juliet Katembwe, Miss Losera Ranchwene, Mr. Elliot Mwebesa, Mr. Anthony Kagawa, Miss Linda Aronda, Mr. Francis Tumhere, Mrs. Gloria Mugambe, Mr. Sam Semanda, Miss Naomi Rwabugire, Miss Dora Rakaburete, Miss Rachel Mabuza, Miss Naomi Rwabugire, Miss Dora, Mrs. Jennifer Mwenemuzei, Mr. Emmanuel Barunji, Mr. Frank Katsime, Mr. James Msinguzi Garuga, and Dr. Peace Msinguzi Garuga. They are part of the friends and family who have come to witness as we pay respects. Honorable Boniface Okot, and then Honorable John Taylor.
Right Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the motion in paying tribute to the late Mr. Keith Muhakanizi. Going by the testimonies, I count myself very unlucky not to have physically interacted with the late. However, I've been fortunate to interact with his biography and also his microeconomic ideals. Right Honorable Speaker, there are multiple lessons to learn from Mr. Muhakanizi for the young people of this country, but I would love to share only one. When you go by his biography, you'll notice that the late Muhakanizi was trusted to join the public service of this country at the age of only 23. And this was immediately after Makerere. And he also reciprocated this by deploying other young people on the basis of merit, like Honorable Omara testified. I think the key lesson for us as a country is that for us to be able to build capacity and a critical mass of technocrats, we need to be very deliberate and make it easy for young people to join public service devoid of the rampant corruption as it is currently, devoid of influence peddling. May the soul of Mr. Muhakanizi rest in power.
Thank you, Honorable John Taylor.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I stand here to support the motion to pay tribute to the late Keith Muhakanizi. Right Honorable Speaker, during my tour of duty as a private secretary to the President, we could severally attend meetings where what we deemed to be very unrealistic financial proposals were made to different individuals, especially foreigners. We knew that our shock absorber to run to was Keith Muhakanizi, and it was always the norm. When you fail to convince the principal against, you run to Keith and tell him, this we don't find it to be in order. Right Honorable Speaker, Keith joins a class of Ugandans, actually a rapidly dwindling class of Ugandans that can vehemently stand to the excesses of government. He would boldly write in capital letters a letter back in response to a blue letter. And that is what is lacking now. Right Honorable Speaker, it is a kind of a near crisis when those possessed with power to do their supervisory role are failing. And so the technocrats are also failing to advise the policy makers on what should be done to bring total sanity, and I'm saying total deliberately, into the affairs of government. Right Honorable Speaker, it is a pity, but it continues to be a wake-up call. Whenever we pay tribute to a great man and woman in this august house, there is always a very big gap that is left, too hard even to fill. I condole with the family and pray that the late Keith rests in peace.
Thank you, Honorable Milton Muuma, Honorable Migade.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the people of Chigulu South and my own behalf, I do convey heartfelt condolences to the family and the country at large. Mr. Speaker, my first close contact with the late was in 2010, when I led a delegation of local leaders from Iganga to Ministry of Finance when URA had garnished accounts of a young municipality called Iganga Municipality. Mr. Speaker, the reception accorded to us by the late, I think I would borrow a leaf from Honorable Okupa's submission. I had decided to hate the late because he said, all of you must be arrested for eating taxpayers' money. I said, my trousers began shaking because I was to be arrested for the first time. Having led a delegation, innocent as I was. Mr. Speaker, he sat us down and said, what is the problem? We said all the accounts of Iganga Municipality and Iganga District have been garnished by URA. So he said, what is the problem? Councillors, you see, the Local Government Act then was saying 21% of the local revenue was to meet administrative costs of local governments. So councillors were paying themselves according to that law. Here, Parliament had amended the Income Tax Act, reflecting council emoluments to be taxed, but they had not begun effecting that then. So all local governments fell victim of this. It is his advice that saved the entire country. All local governments were saved out of his guidance that you need to engage the president, write a petition.
Thank you, Honorable Migade. Honorable Sowedi Kitanywa, Honorable Azatom.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to associate myself with a lot that has been said about our Keith. Right Honorable Speaker, for the last 10 years in the Committee on National Economy, we have interacted with Keith. And one of those people, in addition to the late Mutebile, who were against excessive borrowing. But many times, as a committee, we would seek the advice of Keith, and the answer would be, I've already given my advice. And the next day, you would see the Minister of Finance coming with another loan. Therefore, when we are speaking at such occasions, what we are talking is not for Keith. It's for us who are still breathing. I'm happy that the Minister of Finance was here and he indeed spoke. What we'll be asking ourselves is, if Keith was to be asked a question as to whether we believed in his philosophy, what would be the response? And now that he is gone, at such a time when we're experiencing the difficulty in the economy, we can only learn from his expertise. We have so many people in this country who have experience, but they lack expertise. And in most cases, we confuse those two. Many of us have tended to learn from experience and not learning from expertise. So Keith had both.
Thank you, Honorable Kitanywa Sowed. Honorable Alelo Azatom.
Right Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. I want to join the rest of my colleagues in delivering my sympathies to the family and the country at large. Right Honorable Speaker, from the testimonies of the colleagues in the House who closely interacted with the late, those of us who did not have an opportunity to interact with him realize that we've missed a lot. But Right Honorable Speaker, we had an opportunity of reading about articles about him, but also admiring his works. Right Honorable Speaker, realizing that he joined service at 23 years and raising through all those ranks in a country where corruption is a hidden agenda in many of people's hearts. We see the late rising through without any corruption stains. We want to applaud him for this. Right Honorable Speaker, I was interacting with my colleague this morning who worked in the Ministry of Finance. And he told me that the late was very good at delegation. That for him, he used even to tell them in meetings that he needed more work because he used to delegate most of his staff and empowering them to perform better.
Thank you. Honorable Azar, Honorable Sor Maureen, Honorable Kunihira.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, and my dear colleagues. On behalf of the people of Madi sub-region in general, Moyo district in particular, and on my own behalf, I wish to extend our sincere condolences to the bereaved family members, relatives, friends, and in-laws, the people of Liantonde, people of Bujumbura, Minister of Finance, Office of the Prime Minister, and all the Ugandans for the demise of Mr. Keith Muhakanizi. We always say God gives and takes. We're here to celebrate his life and times and his legacy here on earth. As a patriot, a nationalist, Pan-Africanist, educationist, family man, God-fearing, principled, honest, and accomplished professional economic giant. He worked closely with the IMF as well as the World Bank. Mr. Speaker, he carried out economic reforms in the late 1980s. When I was RC Secretary for Finance, William Village. Yes, 1986, I was RC Secretary for Finance, William Village. And during that period, we were able to attend some of his lectures about issues related to economics. And before that, Mr. Speaker, we had the Minister for Supplies. We had the terms like magendo, hoarding goods, supplies, and that kind of thing. And the money was being carried in the wheelbarrows and in the sacks. There was inflation. So it was Mr. Keith who tamed this inflation. Now to the
Honorable Sor Maureen.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I bring my sincere condolence on behalf of the people of Arua City. So many things have been said. However, Right Honorable Speaker, my concern is on Ministry of Finance. I wondered why we appropriate funds or budget, we budget very well, but they always headache. At the end of the day, they keep cutting the budget for the Ministry of Health. Now, being diagnosed with this kind of disease, it's very expensive in this country. And we know that many Ugandans cannot afford to travel for treatment abroad. So I would like to request this August House that it's better we step up our budget and the Ministry of Finance should stop cutting the budget such that we have all the necessary services done here in our country, and even the patients themselves can be taken care of by their family members rather than dying the other side on the doctors whom we do not know, and having one member of the family. And then secondly, Right Honorable Speaker, it's a request that we should have Mr. Keith Muhakanizi annual memorial lectures, such that we can have issues of growing our economy we can be discussing because of his name. I want to condole with the family. May he so rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister of Finance, take up that. Honorable Agnes Kunihira.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I raise to second the motion and to pay tribute to Keith Muhakanizi, the gallant gentleman. Keith rendered service to our country. He was a great worker. Right Honorable Speaker, Keith played a key role in the economic development of our country. Our economy is now on the right path. In fact, the GDP has doubled in the last 10 years. Keith looked tough whenever he was called upon, maybe by the committees, to respond to some queries. But Keith was a gentleman full of humor. I observed this during the time when I was on COSASA in the last 10th Parliament, and he would come in to answer queries about Bank of Uganda. Immediately after the meeting, he would start making jokes that you people, you are crucifying us. And he was that man full of humor. As we continue to celebrate his life as a country, I would like to ask the family to be comforted with his legacy and exemplary service to his country. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Honorable FDC Whip.
Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you and colleagues for this opportunity. I stand here, Right Honorable Speaker, to pay tribute to a man I have known for a very long time. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, I met Keith in 1988 at the University of Manchester. He was 1 year ahead of us, me and the late Deo Tamong and the PS, Mr. Vigirimana. His study program involved, of course, moving from Manchester to London School of Economics. I and the late Tamong did help him and assisted him to go through his dissertation by way of proofreading. At the end of it all, he emerged second best in his class of 1988. It's on record, as this is where I want to confirm that we had one of the greatest cerebral civil servants in this country in the name of the late Keith Muhakanizi. He loved his work, loved his country, loved and adored his family so much. He talked straight. For the last 2 years, you all might have known or may now know that I've been receiving treatment in Turkey. I did share a ward, a hospital ward with him. I was in room number 10, while Keith was in room number 11. We went through it all. Hard times, of course. In the hotel, we stayed in the same hotel, same floor, and virtually sharing everything and meeting almost on a daily basis, most especially at meal times. He was in great pain, but showed strength and strong will to live. That kept him going. I want to pay huge thanks to the wife, Janet. I don't know whether she's around. His children, they were ever with him. I will forever remember him for his hard work, his openness and total commitment to good and clean leadership. My heart, of course, goes out to his dear wife, Janet, his children. They were all always around.
Thank you. Colleagues, I want to make a special exemption. We have a colleague who also worked very closely with Keith in Parliament, Honorable Katari Loy, as the Vice Chair of Finance Committee. Honorable Katari Loy.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for giving this opportunity. I join my colleagues in paying tribute to a fallen gallant son of this nation. Right Honourable Speaker and other colleagues, I came to know Muhakanizi when I just left campus. I was a project accountant for one of the big programs of this nation, but within the office it was, Muhakanizi is difficult, he's impossible, so I wanted to meet the man called Muhakanizi. First time I met him was like, who is this young lady? They say she's a project accountant, and what he told me, if you don't do the right thing, you will go to Luzira. I found out to be that Muhakanizi was a very principled guy who cared less about what people thought as long as he was doing the right thing. And that helped me a lot in my profession as a finance person. And like, that's why maybe I'm principled, just like Muhakanizi. Right, Honourable Speaker, in the 10th Parliament, we had the 1% withholding tax for agricultural products. My people, the outgrowers, rejected. We had a meeting with Muhakanizi. I was humbled, your Right, Honourable Speaker, when he listened to the outgrowers. He shared his experience because he had been on the board of Kinyara Sugar Works. I was humbled. And like most of my colleagues said, we need to look at the health sector of this nation. Many people are dying of cancer. Our people out there have cancer, but they cannot access Mulago. Right, Honourable Speaker, we should fund the health sector by maybe ensuring that we have regional cancer institutes. Thank you.
FDC Whip.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the FDC, I send our condolences to the family, to Minister of Finance, where he worked for a very long time, and to the country. Mr. Speaker, I interacted with Keith many times. Keith had a low opinion about the political class. We quarreled on phone, in the media. The decisions that we took as parliament, they were almost in many ways at loggerheads with the decision of the financial advisor. I'll give you one. When we are processing a motion here to create municipalities in the 9th Parliament, Keith had refused to issue a certificate of financial implication. Chira was one of those to be created. So I went to his office with Honorable Evelyn Anit. He was my neighbor. I come from Ruengo. And I said, neighbor, why are you refusing to create Chira municipality? He said, you're hopeless. You're also joining them. He then gave us a certificate of financial implication that was saying there is no money to fund them. That's what the Honorable Adolf Mwesige, the Minister of Local Government, then worked in Parliament with. A proposal to create municipalities with a technical advice saying we don't have money to fund them. There are not many civil servants who can stand against political advisors. Keith was one of those. I don't usually celebrate people just because others do so, but this guy was worth celebrating. One of the biggest problems we have, there is a high level of
Conclude.
Of sycophants at a political level, but also at a civil service level. This man was not a sycophant. And we will miss them, by the way, with Mutavile. Mistakes could have been made in the service, but in good faith. They are not one of those who are seeking to please anyone. Like I see a lot of people, including those who are now praising Muhakanizi. At the earliest opportunity, they will be falling on each other to say, Mr. President, you can rule for life. What you are doing is okay, even when he's creating problems. As you clamor that they should restructure the office of the Prime Minister, he was also against a big parliament of 539 MPs. You can't even fit here. Local governments, now every village has become a district. And you offload all the trouble from here to them to look for money, to fund councillors, to fund this and that. So please stop focusing at all the office of the Prime Minister where there is a problem now. We should focus on the entire political and leadership infrastructure in the country. Reduce parliament, reduce cabinet, reduce districts, reduce everything. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Honorable Bahati.
To the wife, Janet, the children, friends, and relatives, receive my sympathies and the sympathies of the people of Chigezi on the loss of our friend Keith. I worked with Keith for 7 years, and out of the 7 years, I was with him at the Ministry of Finance, and my office was next to him. He was a man who believed in accountability, believed in human resource, had a strong sense of fiscal discipline to the extent that when we were
legislating on a Public Finance Management Act, because he disliked supplementaries, he proposed that we should not put a clause of supplementary. And when it came July in 2015, as a government, we were stuck and we had to come back and amend the Public Finance Management Act to allow the supplementary to move on. He supported the private sector. And Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, I think Keith and Professor Mutebile are the Karl Marx of our generation. The reforms that they put in place to grow our economy will forever be remembered. On the lighter note, Honourable Speaker and colleagues, I disagreed with Keith on one point, because he was very obsessed with timekeeping and being punctual. In one of our top management meetings, he came and looked at the order of the management team. You know, we normally have prayer, communication from a chair and others, and he suggested that, friends, can we have one prayer that covers the whole mass so that we can save time? And I said, Keith,
conclude, Honourable Minister.
We cannot allow that, because you are a son of a Christian, and therefore we can't do that. Friends, we can pay tribute and pay back. I was thinking, what can we do to really appreciate Keith? By supporting the policies that he supported. Support the private sector, have fiscal discipline, and let us grow our economy. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Thank you, Honourable Mumba.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. And I want to thank the Prime Minister for moving the motion, and also want to thank the members for the good words, advice that you have been able to tell the country, tell the family about the person in Keith Muhakanizi. I worked with Keith Muhakanizi. He has been my accounting officer in the office of the Prime Minister. But I want to say one thing that has not been said that Parliament did, and Keith really stood firm. We had, since the 6th Parliament to last Parliament, resolutions were always passed against Keith. But that could not deter him from standing firm and coming to the same Parliament or the same committees to say the same words that caused him problems in the previous meetings. He had about 24 resolutions of Parliament. It's only this Parliament that has not yet passed a resolution against Keith. But because he stood firm on his professionalism, he was giving genuine advice that made him stand strong, stand firm, and consistency is required when we are doing our work. Let's learn from him. Honorable members, when it comes to acts of compassion, you may not have seen or been able to witness this. When a staff in OPM was losing sight, walked to him and said, "Here I am, my PS. Can you please help me? I'm losing my eyes and I can't afford." Keith got money from his pocket and men.
Right, Honourable, conclude.
Keith was able to get money from his pocket and met expenses for this person's medical bills, and the person has the sight restored. A junior staff in the office of the Prime Minister. Lastly, Right Honourable Speaker, I want to say, when Keith came to OPM, he found when the staff had lost morale and confidence because of what used to happen in that office. But he's one person who said, "My minister, I'm going to make sure I restore confidence and self-esteem in every staff to be able, when he's outside this office and representing this office, to know he's coming from the office of the Prime Minister." And he had achieved that. That's why he was able even to bring those who had been interdicted, those who had been taken to court for different reasons and had stayed in court for long without having these cases concluded. He made sure the cases are concluded and these staff were brought back to office.
People are mourning, the family is mourning, but the technical staff in the office of the Prime Minister are the most hit because he had become a parent. Keith could not allow any meeting to happen beyond 5 o'clock. He said, majority staff are young. Let them go and work. Let's buy them computers. It is a .com era. Let them go and be able to do their work at home. Come the following day with the work done so that they have time to look after their families. And that was parenting to many of the young people. We celebrate him for being a parent to many. Lastly, Right Honorable Speaker, we were handling the issue of performance of externally financed projects in government. And it is good, it is bad. But we needed his expertise. We've been submitting papers to cabinet. Office of the Prime Minister would submit the issue of service delivery, value for money. Office of the Finance would now submit the financial bit. Because of Keith's ability, agility, would always move to finance and OPM, brought the two together so that it is only one paper submitted. Because it's one government and about the same subject. We are going to miss him because he had the time for everybody. He would walk to everybody's office. He would talk to everybody. He would value even a sweeper in that building. And by the way, he would fear nobody. What you talk of the meetings we've been having that are hot, it is true. And I've attended many of them. He would fear to tell nobody. Even if you say I'm the Minister General duties, he says I'm the technical head here. Listen to my advice. We need such people in this government. To the family, he has served and loved this country. Let's have all of the network he made. He made for a bigger family beyond his biological family. Please, whenever you have issues, memorial services, invite us. We come as part of his family that he created on earth. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Thank you, Mrs. Muhakanizi and relatives. The views in Parliament are usually a reflection of the country because we have colleagues from all over the country and covering all shades of opinion. I have been here holding sittings. I have attended sittings as a backbencher. Very few people, very few people could pass a mark when we bring here to pay tribute for 48 members of Parliament contributing to a debate, and all of them, no one raises a single question against the person we've been having. This is a record. This shows you that Mrs. Janet Muhakanizi, your husband has left behind a very great legacy. This shows you should walk with your head high. And but it's also a challenge to us, honorable colleagues, because one day we shall be brought here. What will they say about us? Will they talk about us only being good, or we would have made a contribution? Honorable Tebandeke said we are soon dying, but all of you are soon dying apart from me. So you need to think about yourselves. Since me, I'm still here. But really, I want to thank you, honorable colleagues. 48 members have contributed, and I know many more would want to contribute. But we have plenary again at 2. So colleagues, allow me to put a question now that the motion pay tribute to the late Mr. Keith Muhakanizi, former permanent secretary, office of the Prime Minister, and former permanent secretary to the Treasury be adopted. Those in favor say aye, and to the contrary nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, honorable colleagues. Thank you, Right Honorable Prime Minister. Thank you, Leader of Opposition. Thank you, all of you. Extract a resolution of this House so that it can be passed on to the family, the children, the friends will always be looking at it, and a copy of the Hansard to know that indeed their father left behind a very strong legacy. House adjourned to 2 p.m.